I'm Jennifer Goodman with Good Life Realty. I'm here today with Jared Haas of Un.Box Studio, and we've got a couple of really fun things to talk about as it pertains to trends and innovations. So let's start with some design questions for you.
Okay.
What are the newest innovations you're seeing right now in the world of design?
Design in general, I think there's a resurgence of using old materials and methods. For example, I think you're seeing a lot of concrete used in residential structures. You might start to see more things like rammed earth, which is probably one of the oldest building materials ever. Not probably is the oldest building material ever.
Tell me about that.
Rammed earth?
Yes, please.
Well, you're from Canada. It's very popular, or you lived in Canada at least. The two biggest places you'll see it right now are in Tucson, or I'm sorry, just in Arizona in general, and in Canada, believe it or not. Rick Joy's, I don't know if you're familiar with him, an architect out in Arizona. He's really made it popular with modern architecture by doing these absolutely beautiful, purist buildings using it. And I think it's slowly kind of catching on. If you're not familiar with it, it's literally exactly what it sounds. It's taking earth and tamping it and creating these beautiful walls. It doesn't get much greener than that, right?
No.
Yeah. So we haven't done a project with it yet, but looking for that next project to do that. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure you're hearing about it, or you will hear about it at some point.
I'm familiar with, from an insulation point, with hay, and there's been a lot done in the last 10 years with hay.
Yeah,
but not with the mud.
And furthermore, I actually have a project out in Washington that I'm entertaining right now, where very similar to hay, they're looking at, it's called Hempcrete. So they're looking at, it's basically earth mixed with, actually Hempcrete is just pure hemp. I'm learning about it myself, but the thermal insulation properties are just astronomical, and it's a byproduct of of harvesting the marijuana plant. So it's an incredibly green and sustainable system.
Well, I'm sure that'll make a lot of people happy.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see that in Texas anytime soon. But in Washington, it's something that's really starting to come about. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, I look forward to hearing more about that.
Yeah.
For sure. If you do that project, I want to hear. Seriously, I would love to hear more about it.
Yeah, I'll have to get you on the newsletter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would love to.
Yeah, it's been kind of a slow process. It's a new material, and I'm personally learning about it myself. The client's starting to learn about it. It's not just a new material, but there's a whole new method of building around it. So it's a completely different way of thinking about how to put a building together.
Yeah, I mean, up in Toronto, people are using a lot of help me, what's it called? Where you've got blocks in there and they put it together almost like Lego, but they've got styrofoam on the outside and then they pour the concrete inside. What's that called?
SIPs. There's
different company names, but.
Yeah, well, SIPs is structural insulated panels. They're like a styrofoam block. I don't, pouring concrete into that might be a different system that I'm not that familiar with.
Yeah, we'll look it up.
But regardless, it has.
But it's really cool because it literally is styrofoam on either side, and then you can stack them as high as you want. So all you're doing is you're channeling out to put that in there, and then so the wall has the insulation already in it. So then when you go to, you don't need that extra layer of what you do is you save on space because they don't need to frame it out the same way because you've got layer of insulation on the outside, layer of insulation on the outside.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I think I told you I worked in Florida for a couple of years, and everything in Florida is done out of, residential-wise, it's done out of CMU block. But CMU and concrete, rammed earth, they don't have the best insulating values. So the introduction of styrofoam is pretty key. And along with the SIP system that you're starting to see in places, like here in the north, you're starting to see systems like that all over in Florida, where they have some sort of integrated CMU block with styrofoam.
Yeah, keeps the cold outside, or the heat, in our case,
Yeah,
outside.
keeps the unwanted
temperatures.
weather out.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah.
And I mean, the huge differences in temperature fluctuation that we have here.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what it could be during the day and then what it could drop to in the evening.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So keeping that permeable surfaces kind of one temperature is kind of important from an ecological standpoint,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Well, that's part of the passive solar design is, and the reason why people do concrete and rammed earth, CMU block, where you have very heavy masses that store the sun's heat during the day. Blocks out the heat during the day and stores it, and then at night when it gets cold, it releases it.
Right.
We don't have that huge temperature extreme that places like Arizona do, but a lot of the same basic principles still work.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What trends right now are you seeing in modern kitchen design?
I think with kitchens and layouts in general, you're starting to see a lot of consolidated programs. It's a trend that's been going on for years where you have your kitchen consolidated with your dining and living areas, but now it's really starting to become a standard. It's nice because you can reduce the size of your overall house, but also I think I touched upon earlier that most people spend 90% of their time in the kitchen area, and it's nice to have that interaction with the kitchen and the dining area, especially if you're entertaining and you have a bunch of people over. You don't want to have everyone crammed into your small separate kitchen space, as well as the fact connected to the dining area, having it connected to that. It creates this just open experience. You have friends over, you're dining together. You can just kind of pass the food over, walk back and forth in the kitchen pretty seamlessly, interact with people that are cooking in the kitchen. I think it's just a socially healthier way of doing things. And now it's, like I said, now it's becoming the norm more so than not.
Yeah, so it's moved from trend to norm.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
What sort of trends are you seeing then in overall layout of the house?
I think that's the biggest one that I can think of is just consolidating programs in general, but primarily the kitchen, living, dining areas. You're starting to see people that, and we've been doing this a lot, where you don't have a whole separate study or rec room or playroom. A lot of times they're getting integrated somewhere into the program. It might be a mezzanine loft kind of structure that also plays on top of the open kitchen, living, dining concept. The overall idea is that I like to think of it as you kind of have your public space and your private space. Your private spaces being your bedrooms, bathrooms that you want to keep closed off, and your public spaces being your kitchen, living, dining areas, and maybe it's that study or library or music room that you want kind of connected. But maybe it has that option to kind of close off or be a little bit separate.
Got it. And that really does speak to how we live today.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah. We still need rooms, but in a different way.
Yeah, well, we need the space, but they don't need to be separate rooms.
Okay. So would you say that for a modern home then, that sort of almost really defines it?
Yeah, I think part of modern isn't just the actual look or feel, and it's not just the details and having large expansive windows. It's also the program and how you work with that and how you consolidate spaces. And it's having those what I call public spaces, having those as open as possible.
Are you seeing any innovation right now in terms of materials that are being used for design?
Other than, like I said, a resurgence of some of the old materials that we're using, you're seeing a lot more green materials, and this probably segs into one of your other questions, but people are becoming more savvy about green materials, green design in general, and they're asking for it. Sometimes, actually, when I first started off, people were just saying, hey, I really want a green design, but now people are specifically requesting certain things. certain green materials.
Yeah, I think, and tell me if you would agree, but I think part of that is the awareness and the education and the feeling, therefore, because we are educated, we have a social responsibility.
Absolutely, yeah. Here's a shameless plug, but Haas is a huge platform right now. Not only do they just show some nice eye candy images, but they have a lot of little education articles, and more people are getting on there, and they're getting the daily newsletters, and they're reading those articles. So it's great for us. When they come to us, they're already educated, and a lot of them know what they want.
Yep.
As well as other social media platforms and websites and blogs, and just having that connectivity with people in general. There's so many different resources and outlets to learn about things.
Yeah.
Our clients are definitely becoming more educated and smarter for sure.
Yeah. So which means we are constantly needing to be on that same plane with them, because we owe it to them to be able to deliver on those promises of smart, innovative, modern living.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, we have to stay ahead of our game for sure.
Absolutely, and it's not always easy to do.
No.
You really have to, it's a constant, like, I'm always reading, and I'm always, listening to podcasts. I'm always kind of like you, I'm a learner, right? So it's like you've got to understand in today's world, like, what does it mean? How do we deliver a better product for our clients in terms of, like, why does this house make sense for your lifestyle, or why does this house not make sense for your lifestyle? Because if you have kids, then maybe you don't want all those glass walls. But if, or you don't want a certain amount of separation because you need the kids in the same wing of the house. Like, there's a lot of things to consider when you are selling, but there's a lot, obviously, of those elements in design. And what makes my role easier, obviously, is when there's good design involved, like the things that you guys are working on at Un.Box.
It can make your head spin at times. That's why I say parameters are always nice. And when a client comes to us and they give us his parameters and they tell us exactly what they want, us personally, and I know a lot of architects out there spend a lot of time just talking to potential clients before they become clients. And it's not just asking them how many bedrooms do you want, how many bathrooms do you want, but it's actually getting to know them and figuring out what their needs are, what their life, and that's based primarily on what their lifestyle is, where their priorities are, where their values are.
Yeah. If you really sit down and you look at the process, which you were just talking about, if you really sit down and you look at the process and your ability to go in, and this was a spec, like, whether it's a spec house or not a spec house, there are just fundamental considerations, right?
Oh, absolutely.
From a design element.
Yeah, specs are definitely different than custom homes. Specs, you don't know who your client is, really. So you have to appeal to mass audiences. Whereas custom clients, there's a lot more of an interview process going on. You don't have that with spec homes.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a liberty that you're just not allowed to have, I guess. But what you do have that's pretty cool is you have an ability to influence.
Absolutely.
How lives are lived and how those stories are built in those homes.
No, it's true. There's a lot more freedom. There's some freedom to experiment a little bit. Sometimes developers don't want you to do that. But having worked with guys like Lex and Newcastle Homes, they're very conducive for allowing us to do that. And we're working with them on a couple other projects where we're really starting to push the envelope on things. Trying to implement some things that people didn't know what they want, didn't know that they actually, wouldn't know that they would want that. It's kind of like Henry Ford and the, if he asked people what he should be doing next, they would have said a faster horse.
Right.
Yes,
I've heard that quote.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and that's true. So it's in Austin, you're in such a great space because you have an ability where we are building and we are creating so quickly that you do have an ability to influence a lot of lives and lifestyles.
Absolutely.
As a result.
Yeah. That's our goal. It's keep that ball moving forward. We're always learning. We're trying new things. Un.Box Studio, we're general practitioners. We rarely ever do the same project. Well, we don't do the same project twice.
Sure.
Every project is different. Every project is unique. Every project is an opportunity to try something.
Yeah. Do you have a signature style?
Overall, I mean, I think people look at us and say that we're very modern, we're very minimalist. I think we strive towards very purist ideals. We try to stay away from trends. The ultimate idea is that in 20 years, 100 years from now, we want those buildings to still feel relevant. So the less we can stay away from trends, the better off we are. I think the best way to do that is to use a lot of natural materials, things that are in our minds timeless. Only time will actually tell, but using things like glass, steel, concrete, stone, wood, they've been around for ever since man, and they probably will continue to be around.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so tell me this. What's not hot in design these days?
I think that whole bigger, faster, cheaper movement, it's still, I wouldn't say it's not hot, but I think it's starting to become frowned upon. Just like the fast food movement, where McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, they became kind of the norm for a lot of people. Now they're being frowned upon. Now there's actually other options out there. I think the same thing is happening with architecture. Sure, people have the option, they can go out and get a very big box builder home out in the suburbs, but not everyone wants that anymore.
Right. So where do you see the future of new builds then?
I see it more towards that what I've been calling slow food architectural movement. I think people are starting to see the value in having more socially integrated spaces. And houses that are more custom designed towards them with a lot of modern ideals.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
For taking the time to take us a little behind the scenes on where you're looking at trends and innovations and about your business in general. So thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right. I'm Jennifer Goodman with Good Life Realty, and I've been here today with Jared Haas from Un.Box Studio. Jared, again, it's been a pleasure having you.
It's been a pleasure.
All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.